Hey everybody, this is going to be just a quick little review about solving inequalities using sign charts. Okay, so maybe it'll kill two birds with one stone here. Sign charts can be used to solve rational equations, which is something like 2x minus 1 over x plus 2 times x minus 4 equals 0. Sign charts can be used to help solve that because they can tell you where the interval or where the function is positive or negative, meaning where the function, the y value, is above or below the x-axis. But I'm not going to do one of those right now. I am going to do an inequality, which is really the same thing. And I'm going to start off with an easy one that just needs some factoring, but it's not actually a fraction. Okay, so I'm going to start off with negative 2x squared minus 22x minus 20 is less than or equal to 0. Okay, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, ooh, negative signs, lots of 2's. Let me factor a negative 2 out. There, I like that better. All right. Now, I could divide through by the negative 2, but then I'd have to remember to change the sign because, when you multiply or divide through by negative, you change the sign. So I'm just going to leave it. But it does not affect the problem. Well, let me say that again. If you do divide through by the negative 2 and you get rid of it, you need to flip this to be greater than or equal to. So I'm just going to keep it. And then I'm going to factor my parentheses here. Okay, and then I'm going to solve for my zeros. Negative 2 is not a 0 because negative 2 equals 0 doesn't make any sense. So my zeros are really just negative 10 and negative 1. Okay, so now I'm going to do my sign chart. This is how we do a sign chart. We take all of our factors, this guy and this guy, and this guy. And yes, I know negative 2 did not result in a 0, but it's still sitting there waiting to be multiplied. Okay, so we're going to use negative 2, x plus 10, and x plus 1. And then we have our little sign chart line here. This represents kind of the x-axis. All right. Okay. And then we put our zeros on there. So we have negative 10, and we have negative 1. So we've created 3 sections. Section 1 to the left of negative 10, section 2 between negative 10 and negative 1, and section 3 from negative 1 up to positive infinity. Okay, now all we're looking for is the sign, the SIGN sign. We do not care what the number is. We're not looking for specifics. We're just looking for the sign. All right, if you take negative 2 and you plug it in anywhere here, which I realize doesn't even make sense because there's no x, but negative 2 is always going to be negative 2, right? So he's always going to be negative. Okay, what about x plus 10? Well, I always think of some ridiculously large number. Instead of negative 11, I go with like negative 1,000,000. Obviously, negative 1,000,000 plus 10 is going to be negative. Now we need to pick a number between negative 10 and negative 1. How about negative 5? Negative 5 plus 10 is a positive number. And then we pick a number to the right of negative 1. You could pick 0. You could pick 1,000. You could pick 14,623,000. It doesn't matter. Whatever you pick, when you plug it in for x, you're going to get a positive number. Okay, then we do the same thing here. And I believe we're going to get negative, positive. Okay, now think about it. Up here, these 3 factors, negative 2, x plus 10, and x plus 1, were all multiplied. So we're going to multiply negative times a negative times a negative. That gives us a negative. Negative times positive times a negative, that gives us a positive. Negative times a positive times a positive, that gives us a negative. So the graph is going negative, and then it's positive, and then it's negative. I guess I could have drawn this one strictly below my pretend x-axis here. There, how's that? Is it better? Okay. Okay, so to answer the question question said negative 2x squared minus 22x minus 20 is less than or equal to 0, and we're looking for a solution set, and I would prefer to have that in interval notation. So I'm going to write that interval notation as negative infinity up until negative 10. It includes negative 10 because it is less than or equal to 0. And this picks up with negative 1 to positive infinity. Good? All right, let's look at our next problem. Let me flip my page right here. Okay, next problem. We've got x minus 10 times x plus 5 to the third power times 2x plus 6 squared is less than or equal to 0. Okay, well this one's already factored for you. I wanted to work this two different ways for you, and this might be tedious. If you understand this, just skip this part, but I'm going to go through for some people who were absent a lot. Okay, so we've pretty much already got our factors. We've got our x minus 10, we've got our x plus 5, and we've got our 2x plus 6. So what are my zeros? My zeros that belong on my sign chart are going to be positive 10, negative 5, and let's see, that's going to be 2x equals negative 6. That's going to be negative 3, right? Okay, so let's see, I've got negative 5, I've got negative 3, and I have positive 10. All right, and then I'll write my factors here, x minus 10, x plus 5 cubed, and 2x plus 6 squared. Okay, so I'm going to plug numbers in to the left of negative 5. That's going to give me negative, negative, positive. Think about the cube root or the cubic power and the squared power. Squared, you're always going to get positive. I could go ahead and write those out. All right, between negative 5 and negative 3, I guess I'm going to pick negative 4, and that is going to give me a negative. And right here, negative 4 plus 5 is positive 1, so that's positive. Between negative 3 and 10, I'd pick 0. 0 minus 10 is still negative. This is positive. And above 10, I'm going to get a positive. So my negative times a negative times a positive is positive, negative, negative, positive. Alright, so let's change colors here. I am above, below, below, above. Okay, another way to do this problem, take it or leave it. You can break all of those factors up individually. Instead of having x plus 5 cubed, you can do x plus 5 and x plus 5 and x plus 5. And instead of 2x plus 6 squared, you can go 2x plus 6 and 2x plus 6. And then you have your same zeros, negative 5, negative 3, and 10. There we go. Okay, so this is going to be negative, 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 positive. Now I'm doing x plus 5. And these are all going to be the same, but for some people this helps because you don't have to think about timesing it or doing the cubic power or the squared power. Okay, so this is going to be negative, positive, positive, positive. And yes, these are all the same across, so I can just go negative, positive, 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 negative, positive, positive, positive. Now for 2x plus 6, we're going to have a negative, and then when we put in negative 4 times 2 is negative 8, plus 6 is still negative. Right here, we're going to get a positive and a positive, and then we can just copy that down again. Okay, now it's negative times a negative, 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 which is positive. This right here is going to give you negative. All of these right here are going to give you negative, and this is going to give you positive. Okay, so the exact same solution that we had last time. Now let's go back to the problem. The problem wanted to know where was it less than or equal to 0. So our solution set is going to be negative 5 all the way to 10. Sometimes we would have to break at negative 3, but since we can include the 0, we're not going to have to break at negative 3. Okay, so it's negative 5 to positive 10, closed solution set, that's it. Okay, last problem. Oops, I lost it. This is one where we were getting the common denominators and such and simplifying. All right, so the common denominator that you're going to multiply through by is going to be x plus 1 times x minus 1. When you multiply this times 2 over x plus 1, the x plus 1's cancel, and you just get 2 times x minus 1 plus 6 times x plus 1 is less than or equal to 0. Distribute. And that is going to give me 8x plus 4. I can take a 4 out. Okay, so now for my sign chart, which is not terribly necessary when it's this simple, but I still like to do it. We've got a 4 and a 2x plus 1, but my only 0 is the negative 1/2. Okay, so 4 is going to be positive no matter what. This is going to be negative, positive, so this is negative, and this is positive. So the solution for 2 over x plus 1 plus 6 over x minus 1 is less than 0 is negative infinity up to negative 1/2 parenthesis. Okay, I hope that helped you guys. Thanks for watching.